With Utah Jazz being on the verge of hitting the reset button this offseason after another disappointing playoff failure, the resignation of head coach Quinn Snyder, and the unhappiness of star player Donovan Mitchell, it seems very likely that we are going to see defensive anchor Rudy Gobert be traded, and the Bulls have emerged as a top candidate to acquire Gobert. Now, it's well documented Rudy Gobert has a great impact on the defensive side of the ball, as he is a three-time Defensive Player of the Year and is also a three-time All-Star. But do the Bulls have just what it takes to get a deal done with Utah? Now, before we go over whether or not the Bulls actually have the pieces to get a Rudy Gobert trade done, we need to talk about what Gobert would bring the Bulls if a trade were to be completed. Now, the biggest part of Rudy Gobert's game is his defensive presence. We know how dominant of a defensive player he is. There's a reason he's in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year every season. It's because he's coming off of years where he's dominant on the boards, where he's absolutely amazing at protecting the rim. He's coming off of a year where he averaged 11 defensive boards per game, also 2 blocks per game. So adding him to a core that already has Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, and assuming you keep Patrick Williams in this trade, Patrick Williams, that would make the Bulls one of the best defensive teams in the NBA, and that would immediately fix the issues that they had all last season when it came to their defense down low. Now, the real problems begin when you start to discuss his offensive game. Now, Rudy Gobert has never been a particularly elite offensive player. He's not a guy who's going to shoot the ball for you. He's the exact opposite of Nikola Vucevic. He's not a shooter. He's somebody who's going to be more aggressive driving than he is shooting the ball. But he's coming off of a year where he averaged 15.6 points per game. He also shot a career high when it came to his field goal percentage, but still, he's not going to be particularly elite on the offensive side of the ball. He's going to be a good rebounder down low, as he was still doing very well in his offensive rebounds. But still, he's not going to be a guy who's going to give you a lot on the offensive side of the ball. His presence is going to come on the defensive side. Now, more and more issues emerge as you dive deeper into Rudy Gobert. When you look at his contract, that's going to be the biggest issue because he's currently going to be owed over $40 million over the next 4 seasons. Now, if the Bulls are willing to take on this big contract that he signed just about a year ago, then I mean, I'm fine with a Rudy Gobert trade, but the chances of not just the Bulls, any team being willing to take on a big contract like Rudy Gobert's seems very unlikely. Now, if a Rudy Gobert trade were to happen, there's going to be some guys the Bulls are going to have to cough up because they've given up most of their picks in the Nikola Vucevic deal, in the DeRozan deal, in the Ball deal. So they don't have a good load of picks. If they're willing to offload this year's pick, which is the 18th overall pick, they're probably going to have to package that with another one of their players. They do have some guys who could be intriguing to a Jazz team that's most likely going to be resetting things going into a rebuild this offseason. They have Patrick Williams, who was the 4th pick in the 2020 draft. They do have Ayo Dosunmu, Kobe White as well. All three of those guys could definitely be thrown in there as they're young players who have all three of them have showed a lot of promise. Then you have some veteran guys, Nikola Vucevic. In almost every situation where Rudy Gobert gets traded, you're going to see Nikola Vucevic be heading to the Jazz. His contract's big. He's going to be a free agent next season, but he's on a big contract. He's on a max deal. Also, I just don't really see him being in Chicago as a backup big man, especially on his cap hit. I just can't really see it happening. Also, Javonte Green, he had a breakout year with the Bulls this season where he stepped up big time when Patrick Williams got hurt. He looked really good. He could definitely be a guy on the move in a trade for Rudy Gobert. Now, Rudy Gobert to the Bulls would fix so many problems that they've had last season, addressing the down low defense, addressing their overall down low presence. At the same time, though, it's going to be interesting to see how the Bulls play this. Now, there's many other teams involved. Dallas and Toronto have both been named as potential locations for Gobert, and they both have a large assortment of picks. They both have pretty solid futures. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Bulls are going to play it. Now, we know AK is willing to be aggressive. We've seen it in the past with the Nikola Vucevic trade. He's willing to give up futures in order to get the guys that he wants to help him win now. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Bulls choose to play the Rudy Gobert situation this offseason.